Players will be able to equip a second set of weapons. Each set will represent a stance the player can switch between. Each stance grants different attributes. Players will be able to switch stances during combat to utilize each set of attributes and effects. This is some DataMine info from DataMineARPG, and I'll leave a link to his Twitter in the description below. So, this post starts off, everybody, I'm sorry for the ping. Well, no need to apologize. I'm pretty sure we're all grateful, so thank you. Got some exciting news regarding new Inferno difficulties. This is different from Hell difficulties. Previously, DataMine poses, or how Blizzard calls them officially, combat stances. Here's an explanation of how it works and when it unlocks straight from the game files to lift the confusion. Defeating Fangworth in Hell 8 and reaching Paragon level 800 will unlock new Inferno difficulties. Enter Inferno 1 to unlock combat stances, stronger equipment, more challenging Helliquary bosses, new legendaries, and new Paragon specializations. So, you'll have to enter Inferno 1 after defeating Fangworth and reaching Paragon level 800 to get stronger equipment, new legendaries, and I'm unsure if these are the same thing. Perhaps like we've seen previously where some essences were tied to certain difficulties, or if stronger equipment and new legendaries are two separate things. More challenging Helliquary bosses, and he's got some DataMine info on 6 new Helliquary bosses, and I'll share that at the end just so we can get through his write-up first. New Paragon specializations. No mention of how many, but with the Paragon specializations, it's also unsure whether we're getting additional Paragon levels added to the cap, or if we're going to remain at the current 900 that's in game. Entering Inferno 1 will also unlock more Challenge Rift levels. This has been a popular topic as players get closer and closer to Challenge Rift 300, or possibly have even cleared it. And that's because there's actually not enough crystals to fully upgrade your secondary gear. So some players have been wondering when and how they're going to acquire that, or if the Accursed Towers were going to be the method, and this method is fairly slow, but it does add up over time. Players who choose to move into Inferno difficulties will only be ranked against other players within Inferno difficulties on the leaderboards. Quite interesting. This is saying that you'll be matched on leaderboards whether you're in the Inferno or remain in Hell. So you could actually opt not to progress in this manner and stay on a separate leaderboard. So wondering if this game is actually going to start to allow players the choice to separate themselves in that regard. Players who have chosen to move into Inferno difficulties will only be ranked against other players within Inferno difficulties in the Battleground leaderboards. So again, another method of perhaps separating players, forming different brackets, and this sounds like, at this point it may just be Inferno and non-Inferno, but perhaps we'll see more of this over time and start to see further and further separation for players who are interested. More on stances. Players will be able to equip a second set of weapons. Each set will represent a stance the player can switch between. Each stance grants different attributes. Players will be able to switch stances during combat to utilize each set of attributes and effects. One thing I find really, really interesting here is switch stances during combat. This will completely change the dynamic of games, completely change PvP, giving you additional abilities, second whole loadout essentially, So very interested to see this. Whether or not the description is accurate, time will tell, and things can obviously change from when they are data mined. So having the ability to kind of change mid-combat is going to be enormous, and if this is incorrect, just having the ability to change out of combat is still going to be pretty enjoyable. Not having to go back to the armory all the time will kind of allow you to seamlessly go back and forth between content, at least 2 types of preferred content. So overall, very, very exciting stuff. Thank you very much, DataMineARPG, as always. Very much appreciated, and I think the entire community loves when you have stuff like this to share. So please don't apologize for the ping. So let's talk about these bosses, and allow me to scroll up here. So we also have, move myself out of the way here, we also have Cosmetics, and this appears to be the Lilith Battle Pass and the Children of Lilith. So those appear to be what you'll see for the different classes. And on top of that here, there's 6 new raid bosses that will be made available. And I'm not going to try and pronounce all these, so you can read them at your leisure. So again, just some exciting news for everybody. Hope you're all fine. All right, so what am I doing in game today? Well, I am farming, because as you can see, I have class changed to Demon Hunter, and I just want to cover this class and do it some justice. It's been a tremendous amount of changes for essences, builds, and so forth. So I really want to get all of my Demon Hunter content up to date, at least as much as I possibly can. Now, I do want to get onto an in-class myself, as I recommended in a recent video. I believe Shadow Knight will be an in-class, and I want to be able to pre-farm as much gear as possible, because I do plan to cover that as well when the time comes to help the community out. So, I'm going to have to do a lot of grinding to get caught up on Demon Hunter, especially since I have a competitive Accursed Towers match tomorrow, and I need to get some of these new essences if I want to display one of those builds during the match. Otherwise, I'll play something older, or perhaps even tweak one of my old trap builds, since I enjoy playing those so much. If there's any Demon Hunter builds that you'd like to see or recommend, feel free to leave them in the comments as well. I will probably be doing a 1-week stay before swapping to Wizard or Necro, and then staying on those two classes for a fairly lengthy amount of time. So if you want to see something, make sure you get it in quick so that I can get to it and cover it for you, or at least let you know my thoughts. As always, thanks for taking the time to watch, and have a great day.